So it's always interesting when it comes to investing in property, who's actually more important? Is it the mortgage broker or is it the buyer's agent? And of course, being a buyer's agent, you'd suspect me to say buyer's agents are so important that they couldn't be possibly outranked by the mortgage broker. But I think people will be surprised by my answer, because I actually think the mortgage broker is more important than the buyer's agent. And that's despite the fact that asset selection is so incredibly critical for property investors. I still think the mortgage broker trumps them. And that's very, very simply because if I'm buying a house as an owner-occupier, it's essentially a game of bricks and mortar. I'm buying it for practical shelter reasons that comes from my measure of status, my measure of wealth, as well as the basic need of putting a roof over my head. But when you're buying an investment property, it's not a game of bricks and mortar, it's actually a game of finance. It's actually a game of being able to optimally lend to the best advantage so that you can continue to buy more property and build a portfolio over time. So ultimately you can retire the debt and have the passive income that comes from holding these assets. So for me, it's unquestionably the mortgage broker is more important than the buyer's agent. And I do that through gritted teeth, given that I am a buyer's agent. Now, I use an analogy. I remember talking to an investor who was living in Sydney who had multi-million-dollar property portfolio, and their loan to valuation ratio was very low. It was in the 40% range. And they wanted to borrow some more money to buy more investment properties. But because they'd stacked all of their lending with one of the 4 pillar lenders, that bank saw their risk as being too high, and so therefore said, our policy won't lend you any more money, despite the fact on paper they could get more money quite comfortably. So if you had got a mortgage broker who knew what they were talking about, had structured that correctly, they would never have been in that position. So even though the portfolio was full of really great assets that were performing really well, if they're hamstrung on finance, chances are they won't get an optimal result. So for me, a good mortgage broker will be thinking 2 or 3 loans in advance. Whilst they're setting up this loan, they're also keeping an eye on the horizon as to what are they actually going to be doing next and the one after that, because what I do right now will have an impact on those 2 decisions. So I always think, in terms of getting investment property right, you've got to get the strategy right, then the suburb right, then the property. And your mortgage broker has a handle on your detail, your level of detail under your household roof, right down to the money you spend on the mortgage, the money you spend on food, all of those sorts of things. So they really control cash flow in your house. So my conclusion is very, very simple. A mortgage broker is more important than a buyer's agent, but there is a footnote to that. It needs to be an investment savvy mortgage broker, not just any mortgage broker who just wants to do a transaction. Because if you've got the strategy in place on what we actually want to do in building this portfolio, and the person knows how to build the portfolio, then the buyer's agent will complement them and actually amplify the results. But without an investment savvy mortgage broker, chances are your portfolio building activities will be delayed because you don't have optimal results. So despite the fact that I'm a buyer's agent, I think that in the buyer's agent versus mortgage broker or investment savvy mortgage broker trade-off, I think the mortgage broker wins.